She's a woman who feels unwanted because of her plain looks and extra weight. Her mother sets her up on blind dates every chance she gets. This time, she's been paired with a successful lawyer. When she spots his broad, tall frame from behind, she feels a secret spark of excitement, thinking she might have finally met the one. But then he turns around, and she sees that ridiculous reindeer sweater, instantly killing any attraction. So, she decides to sabotage the encounter immediately, and her method works like a charm. Mark finds an excuse to slip away, turning to his mother to complain. Bridget overhears him and is completely mortified, but it's right then and there that she realizes she needs to make some changes, or she'll end up lonely and old, dying without anyone even noticing. Bridget is a curvy, chain-smoking, heavy-drinking spinster. She works at a publishing house. At 32, her career is going nowhere. Her mother, desperate to get her married off, constantly sets her up with balding, creepy men, but none of them are her type. Especially when the holidays roll around, she feels the loneliness even more, drowning her sorrows in wine, and singing sad songs all by herself. Determined to find true love in the coming year, she resolves to turn her life around. She sets a few goals for herself. First, keeping track of her weight and committing to a diet. Next, she plans to reinvent her image, starting with cleaning up her habit. She uses a diary to document her daily progress. Daniel is the newly appointed editor-in-chief, and Bridget's direct boss. He's young, handsome, witty, and charming. He checks every box in Bridget's fantasy. Bridget often slacks off at work, sneaking in long calls with her friend. Unexpectedly, Daniel catches her red-handed. Thinking on her feet, she pretends she's discussing details with an author. Daniel hands her a guest list for the launch party, telling her to get it ready. Having been busted slacking off, she was so mortified she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. At the bar with her friend, she vented about the day's disaster. Everyone was sweating bullets for her, praying that her boss would forget all about it by tomorrow. The next day, she tiptoed past Daniel's office, where a colleague teased that she should pack for a long vacation. Bridget sat at her computer, on pins and needles. Suddenly, an email from Daniel popped up. She thought she was getting fired, but when she opened it, she saw something else entirely. His flirty question caught Bridget off guard, making her think Daniel might actually be into her. She was secretly thrilled, and fired back a reply immediately. And so, they started a flirtatious email exchange. Bridget reveled in this unexpected surprise. She started wearing miniskirts and sheer tops to work, just to catch Daniel's eye, and Daniel's response convinced Bridget that he was truly falling for her. She even fantasized about walking down the aisle with him. After all, a successful young man like him is hard not to fall in love with. To her delight, Daniel really was interested. After work, he asked her out to dinner, but Bridget turned him down, using work as an excuse. She knew from experience that she had to play hard to get. Her friends urged her to seize the opportunity, giving her all sorts of advice. She started obsessing over her image and cramming knowledge to sound more intellectual, all to prepare for the upcoming book launch. Even on her commute, she was busy memorizing her speech, hoping to present her most perfect self. In front of Daniel, she deliberately ignored Daniel at the party, chatting and laughing with everyone else instead. When the author asked for her insight, she awkwardly turned and walked away. But unexpectedly, she ran into Mark, her blind date from before. She reluctantly introduced Mark to her colleague, but he didn't hold back, bringing up her childhood embarrassment. Bridget could only smile awkwardly. At the launch, Bridget seemed very nervous. Even though she'd memorized her speech, she blanked on the boss's name when it mattered most. Right then, her mind was filled with the nickname she'd given him. The boss glared at her as he took the stage, and even Mark in the audience was sweating for her. She knew she'd totally messed up the event. She stood alone, drowning her sorrows, but Daniel didn't seem to mind how she did. Instead, he comforted her, saying she was great. Then, he seized the moment and invited Bridget out for dinner. This time, she had no reason to refuse. Having seen Bridget chatting with Mark at the launch, Daniel asked about it. Turns out, Mark and Daniel were college classmates. Daniel claimed Mark stole his fiancée, which is why he still hasn't forgiven him. Bridget never imagined that beneath Mark's dignified exterior, he was actually that kind of person. This added another mark against him. In Bridget's book, leaving the restaurant, Bridget thanked Daniel for the dinner. As they said goodbye, Daniel kissed her. That night, Bridget completely fell for him. Under the spell of love, Bridget seemed like a whole new person. Her face was glowing with charm, and her weight had unknowingly dropped to 131 pounds. Things were going smoothly with Daniel, too. Her mother invited her to bring Daniel along to a costume party. Bridget agreed without hesitation, thinking she was no longer the lonely spinster, mocked by friends and family. She couldn't help but feel thrilled. They went on a weekend getaway to the countryside, planning to hit her mom's costume party while there. Bridget really thought Daniel was her one true love. While checking into the hotel, Bridget suddenly heard a familiar voice. She turned around and saw Mark. Turns out, Mark was also there on a getaway with his partner. They exchanged brief, awkward greetings, and then went their separate ways. Later, Bridget and Daniel went rowing. Daniel accidentally fell into the water, making Bridget burst into laughter. Their laughter echoed across the entire lake. In the distance, Mark and his associate looked on with disdain. And so, a perfect day came to an end. They were supposed to attend a costume party that weekend, but Daniel bailed on her the next morning. His sudden change of heart caught Bridget off guard. She realized Daniel wasn't taking their relationship seriously, because he clearly didn't see how important this event was to her. But seeing how sincere he seemed, Bridget decided to be understanding. She pushed aside her doubt, and after pulling herself together, she headed to the costume party alone. But when she arrived at the venue, she saw everyone was dressed normally. Turns out, the costume theme had been cancelled, and no one had bothered to tell her. Everyone stood around mocking her. Once again, Mark witnessed her making a fool of herself, but his face showed sympathy for Bridget. Devastated, Bridget went to Daniel's apartment, hoping to find some comfort, but he told her to go home and rest, saying he'd come over after he finished work. Suddenly, Bridget heard a noise coming from inside the room. She rushed to open the door and check, but didn't see anything. She told herself she was just overthinking it, but as she was leaving, she noticed Daniel looked evasive. Then she spotted something hanging by the door, another woman's clothes. She immediately ran back upstairs and flung open the bathroom door. Sure enough, there was a woman hiding in there. Heartbroken, Bridget left Daniel's house. She wandered the streets alone, feeling lost and heartbroken. She thought she had finally found true love this time, only to discover he was nothing but a jerk. That night, she drank herself into a stupor, trying to numb the pain with alcohol, but she didn't stay down for long. She tossed out all her romance advice books, replacing them with guides on female empowerment. She even started hitting the gym like a maniac. She realized one thing: she couldn't stay at her current job another day, so she began frantically scouring the want ad. Before long, she landed an interview. Even though the interviews were a bit of a disaster, she refused to give up. Finally, she managed to score a position at a TV station, working as a reporter. She marched in and handed Daniel her resignation. Daniel actually tried to talk her out of it. He even tried to use her contract to pressure her into staying, but Bridget walked out of that office with her head held high. It felt absolutely satisfying. However, things didn't go quite as smoothly as she'd hoped. For her very first reporting assignment, she completely mistimed her cue and accidentally slid down a fire pole live on air. Her clumsy landing was broadcast for all to see. The report ended in total chaos, making her a nationwide laughingstock. As if her day wasn't bad enough, she had to attend a friend's dinner party that evening. There, she saw everyone coupled up, while she was the only single person in the room. To her surprise, Mark Darcy was there too, and predictably, Bridget became the main topic of conversation and the target of their ridicule. Bridget could only smile awkwardly through it. The atmosphere was so stifling. She just wanted to escape as fast as possible. That's when Mark stopped her on her way out. He told her he actually liked her report at the fire station. Bridget assumed he was just mocking her to her face, but then he made a sudden confession that left Bridget completely caught off guard. Just then, his scheming girlfriend came over to pull him away. Bridget stood there, still processing what happened. She couldn't understand why Mark would like her, yet she felt an undeniable flutter in her heart. But it was just enough to restore her confidence during a low point. Bridget soon received a new assignment. She was sent to cover a crucial court case. If she screwed this one up, she was definitely going to get fired. But right before the big moment, she slipped away to a convenience store to buy cigarettes and ran right into Mark Darcy. This time, she didn't find him quite as repulsive, but then her coworker rushed over to tell her that they'd missed their target completely. Thinking on her feet, Bridget interviewed Mark instead. Since no other media had managed to get a statement, Bridget's impromptu interview was a huge success. She managed to save the day and keep her job, finally giving her a taste of professional success. To celebrate her birthday, she decided to cook a feast and invited her closest friends over. She was feeling surprisingly confident about her cooking. She followed the recipes with great enthusiasm, but the result was a total culinary disaster. Just then, Mark Darcy stopped by, catching her in yet another embarrassing moment. He'd come to congratulate Bridget on her recent scoop. Then, he stepped into the kitchen to help salvage the meal. Staring at the toxic-looking blue soup in the pot, he couldn't help but chuckle. He took off his jacket and got down to business. With Bridget's help, he whipped up dinner in no time. Just as her friends started to arrive, during dinner, her friends noticed the sparks flying between them and started teasing them, trying to play matchmaker. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. It was Daniel, coming to beg Bridget for forgiveness. He pulled Bridget out onto the balcony. Suddenly being pursued by two men at once left Bridget feeling a little overwhelmed. Although her heart was leaning more toward Mark, she remembered the story about Mark stealing Daniel's fiancée. She just couldn't get past that betrayal. While she was still torn, Mark came back to the scene. He called Daniel out to the street, and a fight immediately broke out between them. Bridget rushed down to stop them. Seeing Daniel knocked to the ground, she rushed over over to help him up, while Mark grabbed his coat and walked away. Bridget watched him walk away, feeling a strange sense of loss. When Daniel finally woke up, he tried to win Bridget back again, but this time, Bridget hesitated. She decided to turn him down flat. She wasn't going to compromise her heart anymore. Life went back to being quiet and uneventful, and Bridget was still just a single woman in her 30s. She had gotten used to the solitude. Christmas rolled around again, and her mother was still busy trying to matchmake. She asked Bridget to come to a party, mentioning that Mark would be there. Bridget wanted to say no, but then she heard her mother reveal the truth. Bridget finally realized that her prejudice against Mark was entirely because Daniel had twisted the facts. So, she rushed to join her parents at the party, but there, she heard Mark was leaving for New York. It was also announced that his partner, Natasha, was going with him as his fiancée. Just as everyone raised their glasses to toast, Bridget's voice rang out. No, she started rambling, barely making sense. She knew how she felt, but she didn't know how to make Mark stay. Having missed her chance with Mark, she felt more lost than ever before. Soon after, Mark left alone. On his flight to New York, with Mark gone, her life hit an all-time low. To help her get over it, her friend decided to take her to Paris. Just as she was about to head out, a familiar voice called out from behind. Mark poured his heart out to Bridget. He had decided to stay for her, instead of taking the job in New York, so Bridget's trip to Paris was cancelled. Back at her apartment, Bridget realized she wasn't wearing sexy lingerie. She frantically made an excuse to step away. She rushed to the bedroom to find something to wear. Meanwhile, Mark happened to spot something on the table. Spotted Bridget's diary. It was filled with all the awful things she'd written about him. Before she could even finish changing, she heard the front door slam shut. When she came out, she found Mark was already gone. She threw open the window and shouted his name, but he walked away without looking back. Then she realized Mark had read her entire diary. She chased after him without even stopping to get dressed. She searched frantically for him, determined not to let the love of her life slip away this time. Just as she was about to lose hope, Mark stepped out of a convenience store. They gazed deeply into each other's eyes, knowing they had finally found the one they were looking for. Bridget rushed into Mark's arms, and finally, they shared a passionate kiss on the snowy street. That is what love is supposed to be. It makes you throw caution to the wind, lose your mind, and forget about reality. The truth is, the person who suits you best is never the one you can't have. It's the one who has seen your temper, understands your flaws, and despite everything, is still willing to stay by your side. It's someone who knows how to be tolerant and knows when to compromise.